Immortals Fenyx Rising. Wait, please don't go. I know it sounds like a free-to-play Chinese game that as you invest in your entire life savings to just level up. And yes, it is also made by Ubisoft. But hear me out when I say this. Immortals Fenyx Rising is one of the most underrated games of the year. And no, I haven't been bribed by Ubisoft. However, I would be open to offers, Mr. Ubisoft. Immortals Fenyx Rising is the latest open world game published by our pal Mr. Ubisoft. And goddamn, Ubisoft actually made an open world gameplay look rewarding and genuinely fun, which I really didn't expect after Watch Dogs put me into a coma. But before I continue, I should probably address the donkey in the room. No, not the mustache, but rather the game that rhymes with zebra, myth of the child. Yes, that game. You may notice a slight few similarities between the two because Immortals Fenyx Rising has joined the increasing pool of Breath of the Wild-like games, which is becoming its own subgenre at this point. Grab yourself a gliding apparatus, a horse, some open fields, puzzles, stamina-based climbing, and boom, you've got Zelda's hillbilly cousin. There are a ton of similarities, and Fenyx Rising makes it clear that the game was heavily inspired by Zelda. Immortals Fenyx Rising doesn't have the same endless sandbox that Zelda offers, but Fenyx Rising more than makes up for it with its quick and addictive rewarding gameplay, kinda like crack on a Big Mac. Probably. I've never tried it. You know, the Big Mac that is. But rather than comparing them through the entire video, I'm just gonna focus more on Immortals Fenyx Rising itself because it's actually a pretty neat game. Immortals Fenyx Rising is an open world set in the world of Greek gods, which apparently I'm the only one on this entire planet that knows absolutely nothing about Greek mythology. Like, who the fuck is Hephaestus? Oh fuck it, I don't know. I thought that was a peanut, no a fucking god. My knowledge is really limited. I know Gandhi though, the god of meditation I think. So anyways, this massive guy Typhon escapes from captivity after watching 2 seasons of Prison Break. And being in prison for eons while the Olympians has left good old Typhon to not be too happy about this whole ordeal. So he takes his revenge, robbing them of their powers and removing their godly essences. Fuck. Does this mean Gandhi can't meditate? You are Fenyx, which you'll get to customize at the start, so of course I made the most heroic looking mortal I possibly could, aka I gave Lassie a mustache. After creating your masterpiece, you awaken on the beach. You, a no good mortal wank, are then tasked with recruiting the gods, helping them retrieve their lost powers so you can take on Typhon. Easy enough for Trans Mario. Oh, and you've got Zeus and Prometheus narrating your journey. The story is adorable. It's nothing overly complex or gripping, but it's enjoyable, filled with fun, memorable characters that all portray Greek gods. It even has my favourite god, Mr. Ubisoft.
I'm the god of financial gain.
Those prices! Wow!
I'm also the god of thieves. We all have our vices.
It isn't for everyone, however, as the humour is in your face all throughout the game, and it does take a bit to get its footing, but I liked it a lot, and it's got a very camp style with exaggerated camera and character movements that suit the humour perfectly. There was quite a lot of genuinely funny moments, you know, not as funny as your penis clipping through your trousers I guess, you know, Cyberpunk wins in that department. The tone and jokes used through the storytelling adds a more light-hearted feel to the incredibly dark stories that Zeus and Prometheus narrate to you. Which, by the way, the game is filled to the brim with stories about Greek mythology, as completing puzzles will usually have something relating to a Greek mythology story, starting a dialogue between Zeus and Prometheus, telling you about the tale, but I would never hear it because my PlayStation is louder than an A10 Warthog. It's just a wee bit loud. So I still know absolutely nothing about Greek mythology, apart from Ares as a chicken. I know that. Right then, how's the gameplay? Well, long story short, it's addicting, really addicting. To the point I played a solid 12-hour session, which apparently isn't supposed to be healthy for you. But I'm still alive, so I don't see the problem. The game isn't trying to reinvent the wheel, but it's the refinement and perfection of the basics that makes this game so fun to play, with the perfect incentives to keep you engaged and excited. There are 4 main aspects to the gameplay: exploration, platforming, puzzles, and of course pile driving chickens. Firstly, this game aces exploration, hosting one of the greatest open worlds of the year, and I've played Call of Duty. The map is incredibly dense, giving purpose to every area, always rewarding exploration. So if you have ADHD, oh boy, do I have a treat for you. Even Dora the Explorer would be impressed. Unlike most Ubisoft games, the map is a smaller scale, but this smaller scale works absolute wonders. Instead of massive amounts of boring plains filled with absolutely nothing, the map is filled to the brim with fun, rewarding and varied things to do, like rolling an apple down a mountain. You know, pretty sure you can't do that in Cyberpunk. You genuinely want to explore this world because of how well the game rewards you for doing so. You always get cool new gear or materials for potions, or even resources for upgrading your stats. And then the puzzles are surprisingly pretty good. Not knack good, but still good. All the puzzles are based on a few main mechanics you will learn early on, and then will build up on these mechanics throughout the game, and it's kinda crazy how creative and varied they get with these few mechanics. The game does an incredibly good job of teaching you a simple idea and then adding complexity with new spins to it at every stage, always dancing a fine line of never being too easy, but not too difficult that you've got Linus tech tips on speed dial. Most puzzles ace that great sense of satisfaction when completed, and never feel unfair unless you're blind. Then yeah, it's probably unfair. There are some easier puzzles, and some late game, if done back to back, can become a little bit repetitive, but for the most part the puzzles are just really fun to complete and an enjoyable break from the other elements of the game, like, you know, rolling apples down a hill. But fuck this puzzle.
Yeah.
Even Terminator Ringo would no fuck. And, well, I love the combat in this game. It's just so much fun. Again, nothing overly complex, as you've got your basic R1 attacks with swift sword slashes, or you've got your slower hardened hit and axe, or even use a bow if you want. It's not really an M2 Browning machine gun, but you know, it gets the job done. Then you've got your basic defensive tools like dodging, which if you do it perfectly it slows down time, pretty cool, and parrying, which is cool as well, unless you're a bitch like me and parry a total of 6 times through the entire playthrough, with most of them being entirely unintentional. On top of your basic kit, you have godly powers, which are additional abilities you unlock through the game that allow you to play golf, roleplay as Captain America, do the Zelda thingy, and napalm strikes like it's Nam. All these godly powers are incredibly fun to use, changing up the combat, which on top of that, they can all be upgraded to do even cooler shit like going invisible, creating a clone, or slowing down an arrow making landing headshots and completing arrow challenges so much easier. Also, these godly powers aren't really one-dimensional and can be used for more than one situation, like Athena's dash for mobility, or using Ares' wrath to dodge ground attacks, or even use it to get higher during platforming. Also love the enemy design in this game. They all feel unique to fight, and I just really like their designs. Like, how can you argue with having Jabba the Hutt in the game? But I will say, enemy variety isn't the best, as later into the game, after about 10 hours, you've probably fought every enemy type. They do try to mix it up by increasing the difficulty of enemies and recoloring them depending on their difficulty, but it still is a wee bit underwhelming. The gear also takes a more simplified approach, opting to have 2 unique abilities instead of individual stats for defense, speed and ash ratings, you know, all that stuff. I really like this approach, as single armor pieces can significantly change how you go about combat. Like early on, I'd gathered up gear that made my air attacks do more damage and give me more stamina regen. So my playstyle was all about launching enemies and slapping them mid-air, which was pretty fun. This is pretty much the closest you get to builds, but it's the way it's done leads to most gear not feeling redundant, but rather filling a specific niche that you might want to try later in the game. Also, the armor just looks so cool. Transmog is also in the game, so you don't have to look like an absolute donkey when you want to use specific gear, which is probably a good segue into the progression, as you're constantly finding new gear and materials to upgrade your base stats and your gear. When it comes to actually upgrading, you upgrade a category rather than a specific weapon, so you can upgrade your swords, your bows or armor together, meaning all the gear you collected stays on the same level, encouraging you to always shake it up and try new gear, rather than just sticking to one item the entire game. Then you can find Zeus Lightning to upgrade your stamina, or Ambrosia to increase your health, or even these coins which can be used to buy new skills and upgrade godly powers. Just all these elements of progression feel meaningful and satisfying, rewarding you for completing puzzles and exploration. Platforming and movement for the game is pretty smooth. It's fun even for me, someone who isn't too into platforming. It's sort of mixed throughout the entire game, where you'll be doing it during puzzles, during combat, during exploration of the open world, where you can use your movement abilities. But of course, Ubisoft couldn't let this opportunity pass without throwing their arse into the mix. Because of course, there's microtransactions day one, which it's really just annoying, right? Within reason, I don't mind microtransactions, but in a full price game where there's a paid season pass, it just annoys me. It just takes away from the game, and it's not even supporting further free content. It's just them taking away from the experience, and it's just annoying, and it's Ubisoft being greedy bastards once again, which is a real shame when this game really didn't need it. Content-wise, the game's pretty loaded. The game spans from about 30 to 40 hours with a lot of cool content. But overall, this game was a massive surprise for me. I know from the outside it really doesn't look like much, but I swear this game is just sheer fun to play, and it really shows the potential of the Assassin's Creed team when they're not trying to reason why the assassins are in the Ice Age or some shit. Sure, this game may not have the same highs you will get in other games, but it just aces providing a consistently fun experience through the entire game with very little downtime. Apart from the loading screens, they take fucking forever. The game just strips all the boring shite out of the typical Ubisoft open worlds and just makes a goddamn fun, addictive game. It really surprised me, because this game is fucking banging.